Hi folks, brief little video on resource market supply following the 3 videos that we've done on resource market demand. We have a circular flow diagram here, and what we want to think about is how do households get their income? How do households get their income in order to pay for the goods and services in the product market that they demand? And the answer is that they use their resources, their land, their labor, their capital, and their entrepreneurship in order to earn income in the guise of rent, wages, interest, profit, or some combination thereof, in order to earn the money that they ultimately want in order to purchase goods and services for firms. They do so in the factor market, something that we introduced to you the very first week of class, and now we're getting back to again. In order to offer their resources, households have to give up some of their leisure time and go to work, or maybe they have to offer kind of other types of resources that they have at their disposal in order to acquire the income. Quantity of resources that are supplied depends on the level of rent, wages, interest, and profits being offered for those resources. If we hold everything else constant, if people can get higher wages, for example, they're going to end up offering more work hours, and if they can obtain, another example, more rent for their land, then they're probably going to offer more of their land up for rent, and so on. So the quantity supplied of a resource here in our diagram rises as the price of the resource rises, which should not come as a surprise. So resource market supply works identically to the types of supply that we've discussed before in the product market, only in this case, remember, it's the households doing the supply. Elasticity, amount by which resource owners, households change the quantity they offer for use when the price of a resource changes. This is exactly the same definition we used as when we discussed the price elasticity of supply earlier on in the year. The only difference, and it's the same calculation as you see below, the only difference being that we're talking about the percentage change quantity supplied of that particular resource divided by the percentage change in price of that resource. And good thing, however, here, and this is a little bit different, there are only 2 factors that determine the price elasticity of resource supply. One of those is the number of uses of the resource, and the other one is the time period that we're considering. Let me give you a couple of examples. There are few, if any, substitutes for a rocket scientist, and as a result, the price elasticity of supply for a rocket scientist would be very, very low. But typically, the longer the period under consideration, the more likely it is that substitutes for a resource can be discovered. So in a few years, even an economist like me could be trained to be a rocket scientist. For a month or two, another example, the quantity of oil that can be pulled from the ground is relatively fixed, but given a year or so, new wells can be drilled, new supply is discovered. So the price elasticity of resource supply increases as the time period increases. A couple of vocabulary terms that we need to know. These would be economic rent and transfer earnings. When a resource has a perfectly inelastic supply curve like the one I've shown in S1, the payer earnings on it is called economic rent. If a resource has a perfectly elastic supply curve like the one I'm kind of highlighting with my cursor, the earnings that a person earns on that is called transfer earnings. And for an upwardly sloping supply curve like I'm demonstrating in S2, the earnings that we get from that is a combination of economic rent and transfer earnings. Let's define these things. Transfer earnings are what a resource could earn in its best alternative use or its opportunity cost. It's the amount that's got to get paid to the resource to transfer it to another use. Economic rent is earnings in excess of transfer earnings. So it's the portion of a resource earnings that's not necessary to keep the resource in its current use. Give you an example. A movie star can earn way more than $1 million per movie, but probably could not earn that kind of income given the next best occupation that the person could do, which may be like waiting tables. So thus the greatest part of earnings that the movie star can do is called economic rent. We're going to pick this up in the next video when we finish up this concept. See you in a minute.